In case number 25-1203, petition of the Department of Public Service to open a proceeding to initiate EEU demand resources plan proceedings for the 2027 to 2029 and 2030 to 2032 performance periods. My name is Ed McNamara. I'm chair of the Vermont Public Utility Commission, and with me today are Commissioners Margaret Cheney and Riley Allen. Also present are Commission staff members Tom Nauer, Deirdre Morris, and James LaRock. So, workshop today is not being transcribed, but is being recorded, and a link to the recording will be available in EPUC. So I'm going to first start with doing some introductions. Why don't we start with the department?
Megan Ludwig for the Department of Public Service. There are also members of our staff here today. I know several members will be joining us at certain points. Kelly Launder is here right now, and I haven't gone through the full list of people present on the call, but if anyone would like to chime in, feel free.
Thanks. I will note that through Teams in the recording, you can also see who is participating in the call as well. So thank you. For Efficiency Vermont.
Morris Silver for Efficiency Vermont, and with me today are the witnesses who have pre-filed testimony in this case, and that would be David Westman, Jay Pilia. They will be presenting today for purposes of the workshop. Also here are, and I have to flip the screen, Carl Johnson, Haley Rowe, Gillian Eaton, Kelly Lucci, and various staff persons, including Matthew Walker. And if I've missed anybody, as you noted, they'll be reflected in the record.
Thank you. Burlington Electric.
Yeah, good morning. Tom Lyle with Burlington Electric. With me today is Chris Burns. We both will be presenting today. Xander Briggs, another staff member at Burlington Electric, will be joining us within the half hour, I believe. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. For Vermont Gas.
Good morning. This is Deborah Bufard from Sheehy, Furlong, and Beam. I'm here on behalf of Vermont Gas, and joining me is Tim Perrin, who will be making the presentation for Vermont Gas today, as well as Karen Horn.
Thank you. All right. I would ask folks who are not presenting to please keep your camera off unless you intend on speaking, please. Helps a little bit with bandwidth for some folks. So purpose of the workshop is to provide an opportunity for members of the public, the department, Vermont Utilities, the commission, any parties to ask questions regarding the DRP proposals. So the way the workshop is going to run today, each energy efficiency utility will be providing a brief presentation of its DRP proposal. My understanding is that we're starting with Efficiency Vermont first, then moving to Burlington Electric and VGS at the end. So at that point, unless there's anything else introductory, I'll turn it over to Mr. Westman.
Great. Thank you, Chair McNamara. Give me a second while I set this up. I'm going to present our screen in Teams. Just one note, we did file a PDF this morning of the presentation we're about to give with one addition that I added at the end. Okay. All right, excellent. Seems like that is working. Can everyone see that screen?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. So the way that I'm presenting, you can also scroll through at your own pace, or if I'm going too fast and you want to go back, you can use the navigate forward or backwards button. Very convenient. Okay, so thank you for the opportunity, Chair McNamara and commissioners, to present here this morning. We're going to give a high-level overview of the substantial materials that were filed on December 12th of last year. So far, we've received four separate inquiries in discovery responses. Those will be filed later this afternoon. So to some extent, if we cover any of those topic areas, we'll be following up later this afternoon with those formal discovery responses. Okay, so I will proceed with the agenda. We want to start with a strategic framework that was useful for developing the DRP and the overall elements that are contained in it. We will then talk about the stakeholder engagement plan that is not only required, but that Efficiency Vermont invests a lot of time and effort into over the summer in the development of this proposal. And then I'll hand it over to Jay Pilliard, who's the real star of the show, to walk through both our electric portfolio and TEPF portfolios. And he will cover budgets, savings results, specific focus areas that are germane. And then I will close out the presentation with our DSS and DSS budgets. Okay. I want to start with something that we called our strategic framework. The strategic framework is, well, I'll just start by saying the DRP is very large and complex. In previous filings, it's been over 300 plus pages of testimony, exhibits, filings, materials. It's a lot. And so that's really hard to sort of navigate for individual staff people, including just keeping an overall structure of what is the direction that we want to go? What is our story that we want to tell? And we started developing what's called the DRP strategic framework within the Efficiency Vermont leadership team, the VEIC leadership team, and then staff, and then ultimately shared with our stakeholders. The focus for the strategic framework was really on the creation of electric system benefits for the electric resource acquisition budget. This was after a long discussion with legislators and regulators last year about the future of the efficiency utility. It was really clear in hearing from those discussions, focus on electric system benefits, bring those benefits back to Vermont through reduced energy use. And so we really made a strong effort, and Jay will talk a lot about that in his presentation about how we actually accomplished that and how this proposal reflects a focus on creating those system benefits. That's especially important given the context that this is really a new level, a new cadence for efficiency services, if you will, because there is no low-hanging fruit left. We used to rely heavily on lighting. The portfolio used to be dominated by low-cost, high-yield, high-efficiency lighting opportunities. But for a variety of factors, lighting has now fallen to less than 20% of the total portfolio. And what we're doing to make up for that loss of lighting is really doubling down, and we're in the grinder now of developing real savings for the non-lighting alternatives like motors, drives, heat pumps, HVAC, refrigeration, and cooling. There's a whole world out there with lots of efficiency opportunities that we want to show you as the regulators and the public that we can continue to focus on those services and continue to yield cost-effective efficiency. The FLM program is another focus area. We want to continue that program at its current pace. We're not planning any great expansion for that. We're working well with our utility partners who are running flexible load activation programs. We want to continue focusing on our sweet spot area of FLM enablement. Lastly, we want to address the focus area of cold climate heat pumps, which was a large topic of discussion in 2025. With the release of the department's AMI evaluation results, it really was an opportunity to shake the snow globe on how we look at cold climate heat pumps in the state and find new value propositions for them. Jay will also talk a little bit about that. Now I'll talk about this framework for the TEPF resource acquisition budget. Pretty significant increase to $13 million per year with a continued focus on weatherization. That budget growth is largely due to projections in increased RGGI revenues over the next 3 years. We have seen increased RGGI revenues materialize now for about the last 3 years, and we worked extensively with the department to develop a reasonable projection for what those will look like moving forward. This is enabling us to maintain, to the greatest extent possible, some of our current home performance with Energy Star incentives, which are currently being enabled through state grants and supplemental funding. With this increased revenue, the focus in the framework was to really try and find a way forward where those incentives and those programs, including funding weatherization assistance projects with home repair funds. So that's working with all of our neighbor works of Western Vermont, capstones, all of those WAP agencies throughout the state to help them continue their projects through home repair. Lastly, we want to launch a new whole home heat pump retrofit initiative. This is directly resulting from that AMI study result that was in front of the commission last year. We think that there's a real opportunity there to use the existing technologies to make heat pumps a whole home opportunity. Lastly, we took this opportunity in the new DRP cycle to streamline our DSS initiatives, categories and initiatives. There's a little bit of reformatting. We think it makes a lot more sense, and we'll be happy to walk you through that. Okay, I'm going to now briefly go through our strategic outreach and stakeholder engagement. I'm going to go through this fast, but feel free to ask any questions along the way. The stakeholder engagement process is a required element of the DRP, where we are required by our order of appointment and process and administration document to do this outreach and conduct it throughout various stages. And so our first stage of doing this work is outreaching to individual stakeholders, presenting perhaps a little bit more of a detail to the strategic framework that I just discussed in the previous slide, and to engage with those partners about what is most valuable to them. So what are our services? What is the value of efficiency to your company, to your organization? We worked with utilities. We worked with our customers. We worked with nonprofit and community organizations. And then we built a record of that engagement, took that feedback in-house throughout the summer, and then presented it back to customers, stakeholders, and participants later in the fall once this proposal was finalized. How did we gather that feedback? We did interviews one-on-one with some of our largest customers in the state. We also conducted a public survey, which had a lot of support and participation. We also did a technical feedback sessions at the Vermont System Planning Commission. Our DRP is used and useful by many other organizations in the state, and so we solicited that technical feedback as well. So some of the key takeaways from that feedback was really a continued focus on the value, consistency, and accessibility for customers. Efficiency Vermont does a lot more than just process incentives. We support markets, we support midstream incentive programs. We try to make it easy for customers to receive these benefits, as well as vendors, contractors, and industry experts to participate in these programs. That is a continued value proposition for the state that we heard loud and clear that people support and want Efficiency Vermont to continue doing. We also heard strong feedback that continued support for weatherization, both homes and businesses, is ranked as a high priority. And supporting income differentiated incentives was something that we first explored using these state grants and contracts, but it has really sort of become a staple to the level of services that we're providing. And the public has responded favorably, and so our intent is to continue those programs. Okay. We want to focus a little bit on the greenhouse gas reduction, which had been a theme in some of our prior DRPs. It's now a leading QPI for the efficiency utility. But as we can sort of see, the theme of affordability that is not just an issue in Vermont, it's a national theme. It's a focus area that came loud and clear throughout these stakeholder interviews, and also our discussion, as I said last year, with legislators and regulators. Focus on costs, focus on creation of system benefits. To the extent that greenhouse gas reduction can be ancillary to those benefits, then great. Pursue those programs, but focus on core efficiency and core values of the efficiency utility. And so we heard that loud and clear. Lastly, we heard cost pressures are increasing a lot of utilities. There is generally flexibility for people to understand that budgets need to change or increase over time. But the preference, and this is not a surprise for anyone, is that everyone would like to see their EEC rate unchanged. To a great extent, we took all of these considerations in our budget proposal, which Jay will talk a little bit about. But the combined effect is that we do think that there is downward pressure on the EEC rate through our proposed budget and programs. If there's no questions on the stakeholder engagement, I will pass it off to Jay for a presentation of the results.
All right. Thank you, Dave. Sound check. Can you hear me okay? My headset?
Yes, you're good, Jay. Thanks.
Okay, great. So I'm going to walk us through the electric and TEPF budgets and savings forecast. We're going to start with the electric, if you want to go to the next slide. So we'll start with the electric portfolio. This is the budget that Efficiency Vermont is proposing, which is starting at 42.6 million. Similar to the way we've done it in the past, we modeled in flat, or we model in 2027 dollars, and in this case, that we're proposing a flat model budget for the 20 years. And then the blue line reflects the 2% increase for the nominal budgets. Next slide. This chart shows the sector splits. So the top chart shows the residential and C&I sector split that we're proposing for that 42.6 million. So for this, and in gray, so the gray bar is what we proposed in the 24 to 26 DRP. And so this shows the comparison. For the last DRP, if you recall, we were at 43% residential, 57 C&I. For this, and the goal was to get to 48% for residential, the 48-52 split. That is roughly how the EEC funds are collected from those sectors, and so the goal was to get in alignment with that. We haven't been able to do that in previous DRPs, but we are in this one. So we are proposing, starting in 2027, to go right to the 48% for residential, 52 for C&I. The lower chart shows the sector split for low income. So this is provided to us by the department based on their assessment of the same, how the revenue is coming in. So in the previous DRP, we were at 12.1%. It was a different budget, slightly lower than this budget, but so that represented about $5 million. This is all resource acquisition budgets that I'm referring to throughout this presentation. And the department proposed dropping it to 11.3%. So it ends up being similar. It's about 4.8 million for this DRP. This graph shows the various levels of annual megawatt hour savings. So the blue line shows actuals that we achieved between 2023 and 2025. I will point out that we wanted to bring in 2025 actuals even though they haven't gone through savings verification, because they are the most recent savings. So just keep that in mind. They haven't been verified. Typically that might change it by a percentage point or two, but pretty close. And then the red line represents the results of the DRP modeling. That's our savings proposal. And then the gray is the department's potential study results. So I think notable here, as we talked about extensively in our testimony, we're very similar. Our savings results of our proposal and the department's potential study in terms of achievable potential, program achievable potential, are very similar, about 50,000 per year. We recognize that that is, I'll answer, ask, you have a question now, Riley.
Yeah, Jay, thanks, Mr. Pilliard. Yeah, my recollection is that historically, Efficiency Vermont has been up at much higher savings levels. And I'm just guessing that, I mean, in my memory anyways, it's up around 100,000 megawatt hours per year. And I'm imagining the big difference is kind of lighting and, you know, essentially the standards and whatnot that have kind of fit into that. Is that basically it, or is it a fuller narrative?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I actually have a slide. The next slide gets into that a bit. Absolutely, lighting is the big story. Not exclusively, there's other measures as well, but as you'll see in this next slide, how dramatic the shift from lighting is. Yeah, so you can see that, you know, in 2023, for instance, we were at over 35,000 megawatt hours of lighting savings. This is portfolio wide, and that, you know, that was about you know, over 50% of our total portfolio was lighting. And now you can see dramatic drop. 2024 we were just below 15,000. In 2025 we were below 10,000, and that's really the new level that we think is achievable by the program. It's primarily commercial industrial lighting. It's limited to those measures that were not impacted by the mercury lighting ban. So there are a few fixtures that we can still do. Some lighting redesign and some controls. So there is still an opportunity. You can see we're pretty consistent around just under 10,000 per year, but it's limited. And that blue arrow is really what you're referring to. It's a significant drop, and we're trying to make up some of that loss of lighting through other measures. We're increasing refrigeration motors, industrial processes, as Dave referred to, space heat efficiency. But there's a limit to how much we can make up. We can't make it up at that level of kind of low cost, high volume, very cost effective savings that we got from lighting. Last thing I'll just say on this slide is, did that answer your question?
It did, thank you.
Okay. So you can see now that this also shows the department's, so even though we were in agreement with the potential study results in many ways, really more ways than not, but lighting was one that we were not. So they felt that the level of remaining potential for lighting was closer to 15,000. You know, that's just an area that we kind of agree to disagree. We've really dug into their numbers, and we just feel that ours are a more reasonable level that we feel like is achievable at this point, given all those constraints I talked about. And you can see it's actually similar to where we ended up in 2025. So I would feel that that's a good benchmark. So next slide. So this shows the kind of the rest of the portfolio. This is our stacked graph showing annual megawatt hour savings by end use, kind of highest volume at the bottom, going and decreasing as you go up. You know, I think notable here, as we just kind of referred to with lighting used to be the bottom part of the graph. It was significant, and this is a big shift now. Space heating efficiency has actually overtaken lighting as the largest. They're really close. They're kind of neck and neck, each representing about 20% of the portfolio. But you can see it's a more balanced portfolio, which I think is good. The measures, we're covering a lot more variety of measures in higher volumes as we've started to shift some of those savings. So. But this really represents where we think we can get the savings from and the various levels of those different end uses categories. So next slide. So this graph shows the cost of acquisition in dollars per annual megawatt hour, total resource acquisition dollars, and you can see that that shift, that kind of loss of lighting, really did impact the cost of acquisition. So we've got the previous DRP in 2024 dollars in blue, and the current DRP in 2027 dollars in red, and you can see it's that shift in we're able to bring in less savings at approximately the same budget, and that's what causes that cost of acquisition to increase. But there's still significant. We feel that there's still significant cost-effective savings to achieve. It's just we're in a new reality, different than in the past, where we were bringing in, twice the level of savings in the past. So, next slide. So yep, Brian, you had a question?
Hi, Jay, thanks. And I'm sorry, I missed the beginning. Did you want questions now, or do you want to wait till the end?
No, I mean, I think clarifying questions, throughout would be fine. Sure.
Okay, it was on the last slide.
Okay.
Did you pull together what the 2027 through 2032 budget would look like if you were achieving the same kind of dollar efficiency for megawatt hours? So the 2024 line.
No, we did not do that.
If you were to do that, would that increase the budget or decrease the budget, do you think? Overall budget.
I mean, I'll just jump in.
Dave,
and say,
maybe you can chime in and help me with this.
Yeah, Brian, that's not exactly how these budgets are actually reflected. We put together a model from the ground up based on what measures are likely to be deployed and what the reasonable cost of that deployment looks like. So we provide this graph for illustrative purposes to show that there's many elements of the market and portfolio that have changed. But the methodology that you described is not how we have set our budgets in the past. It's how, as Jay described, we build it through modeling and cost projections of individual measures and programs.
Okay, well, I guess another way to ask the question, David or Jay, is there a way to achieve the same efficiency or dollar efficiency for savings? And based on what you're showing,
I would say no. The answer is no. Yep. I understand now the question. Yes. So that $600 to $700 a megawatt hour that you're seeing from the past is a different portfolio, and it had a significant amount of lower cost savings that we were able to achieve through a mature midstream lighting program. That program is no longer, we're no longer supporting that program. So therefore, we are facing a very different portfolio mix in today's world. Not to mention all the other parameters of today's marketplace, right? Costs are higher, labor's higher. There's a lot of things that are causing upward pressure on the cost to deliver the program.
Okay, thanks, Jay.
Yep. So next slide. Yeah, so just to dive in a bit on some of these areas, we wanted to be clear that there's no proposed EMA spending in this budget or programs in the model. We are proposing to continue funded through TEPF. Actually, I'm not sure if that's which funding source that is, but we are continuing to planning to continue the low-income fuel switch program at $500,000 a year. And that does assume the current program design, which is the DUs covering 50% of the project costs up to $2,500, and then we would cover the rest, which currently has been about $5,000 per project. And then the electric savings of these heat pumps is captured through the midstream. The DUs would continue to capture the fuel switch savings through their Tier 3 program. And we would like to, in the future, pursue a high efficiency electric vehicle measure. This is something that is starting to show up in various parts of the country. Different programs are investigating it. We don't have it currently in the DRP model, but we plan to continue to develop it through our TAG process, technical advisory group, for possible inclusion in the portfolio in the future. And that measure is really just supporting vehicles that achieve their basically higher efficiency, right? They're able to achieve greater miles per kilowatt hour charge, essentially. Dave?
And yeah, Jay, I'll just jump in with an assist on that low-income fuel switch program. That is going to be funded through the electric budget, and not the TEPF budget.
Thank you for clarifying that. I got confused there. Next slide. So as Dave mentioned, we're continuing to support the flexible load management program at the proposal here is $750,000 per year. That includes incentives and non-incentives. It's really focused on 4 primary measures: HVAC, industrial process, domestic hot water, and EV charging as kind of the controllable end uses within the C&I and efficient products programs. And the goal set at this point is 1,600 flex kW over the 3 years. Brian?
Thanks, Jay. On this one, if you were to triple the 750,000 per year, do you expect that you could see triple the model target? And I'm assuming the 1,600 flex kW is cumulative over the entire period, or is that?
Yes, that's correct. Cumulative.
Okay.
I mean, I would have to consult with our program folks. It's not always linear, but yeah, I'd say it's possible that's fair. But it does depend on which of these measures are delivering different levels of flexible kW, and they're not all able to kind of ramp up at the same level, but it's possible.
And Jay, I will say that I supported the FLM team in the development of this. I also participated in the flexible load management working group. This budget, Brian, reflects really what our distribution utilities are implementing right now. As you know, the utilities are responsible for activating the flexible load through flex load programs and tariffs. And our flexible load program is really designed to enable that. And so we do not make a significant investment in enabling flexible load if there's not a corresponding distribution utility program to activate it. And so this budget is really tied to what the reasonable expectation is for the next 3 years for what utility programs are going to look like. So to your question and Jay's response, it's possible that we could spend more and get more, but it's really dependent on what is the size and scope of the utility programs that are going to be activating it. To your question, part of our proposal, and it's not on this slide, is to have the flexible load program not be in a restricted budget category, but to put it in the resource acquisition category so that we can sort of more appropriately pace the investment to what utilities are implementing and activating. So I think that's a very good question, and it actually is very much in line with our recommendation to have this be a non-restricted budget category. For the last 6 years, it's been in this restricted budget category because this was a rollout of sorts, and and now this is basically the steady state amount of spending. But if it goes up, if it goes down, having it being in a non-restricted category would certainly help that.
Okay. Can I say that back to you to make sure I understood that? That sounded like an answer of, I don't believe that more dollars would increase the amount of flexible kilowatts unless the utilities also increase their programs. Because you could then support them.
All of our flex load investments are sort of dependent on those utility programs activating them. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
We have a question from Tom.
Tom?
Thanks. Yeah. Since we're on the FLM proposal, I just wanted to have a few questions related to that. And so now seems like a good time to get clarity. Really, can you, I'm uncertain of exactly what is the role, what are the services that Efficiency Vermont is providing through this FLM budget. So if you could explain that, that would be helpful.
Yeah, Jay, I'm happy to take the lead on that, and if you
Why don't you
want to
take
talk
the lead
about,
on that?
and then I think it would be helpful if you follow that up with what you put into the model and how that's sort of characterized in the model. So Tom, thank you for the question. It's a really good one, and I'm glad you asked. It's a combination of both technical assistance as well as measure enablement. This was seen as a real value proposition for our utility partners who are activating programs, is to actually have customers who are enabled and available to participate in them. So generally that requires a lot of behind the meter technical support, looking at controls, devices, looking at what the phased usage would look like over days, weeks, and months, what their ability to flex that load would look like. In some cases, if there's new equipment like HVAC that would need to be installed with new control panels, all of that analysis is a huge part of what FLM spends time on, especially in the custom C&I category. That's really where most of this spending is right now, is in custom C&I. The residential programs right now are somewhat limited, largely to things like electric vehicle charging and enablement of those. But to a great extent, as you know, utilities have a lot of tariffs in place already for EV charging, and to some extent is more self-managed in that regard than to say what the custom C&I projects look like. So to answer that question, it is a combination of both technical support and then putting incentives on the table to lower the acquisition cost of those technologies, be that the HVAC itself or a thermal reservoir, and then the control technologies. And Jay, do you want to follow that up before going to Commissioner Allen with just how that's sort of modeled in your
Yeah, I mean,
portfolio?
it's pretty straightforward. Basically, all those various measures that Dave just referred to are put into the model as, what we think in terms of the incentive needed to get those controls or whatever in place, and as well as the non-incentives to support the program, technical assistance, et cetera. So these are put into the model with the estimated flexible KW that we think could be achieved if those were activated, and that's really put in at per measure. So it's really just like any other measure in the model. It has flexible KW as the unit of savings rather than, say, megawatt hours.
Commissioner Allen.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, Tom. Was that good?
I was going to say, I will yield to Commissioner Allen, and then I have one or two follow-ups.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Tom. Yeah, I don't know if this is a question for Jay or David, but my question is whether there are opportunities in the residential space for not being kind of end use specific in the flexible load management measure targets, whether there are, in essence, kind of platform technologies that can essentially help enable flexibility from multiple end uses, and whether you're aware of that in the coming space. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for the question. This is a very good question and a hot topic, and I know that your participation in the NECPUC working group on demand response certainly sees that residential sector as being a large portion of what flexible loads should look like in the future. Generally, I think our team and the utilities working on this would agree. There's a lot of investment going on right now in the state behind distributed energy resource management tools DERMS. And I think that is really going to be one of the sort of pillars that is needed, because unlike a lot of large but small number of C&I customers who you can activate with a phone call or an email, in order to really have an impact in that residential sector, you sort of need a coordinated system to do it, right? And so as our utility colleagues are investing in those platforms, we would absolutely look to things like residential HVAC, hot water, EV charging as real opportunities. But ultimately, if they're not connected to that sort of central platform, it's going to be really hard to control.
Just one follow-up. Are you familiar with the something called an Apple Energy Kit? Is that
Of that one? I'm not actually.
okay?
I'm not
Okay,
familiar
thanks.
with that.
Right.
Happy to take an email on that with you offline though. Thanks.
Tom, you had to follow up?
Right. So in the last DRP, one of the things that the commission said that it wanted to see was the formation of a flexible load management working group. And I know that that group has been in existence for a couple of years and has been meeting. And I wanted to hear from Efficiency Vermont how your proposal here has been informed by the work of that group.
Yeah, I think it's very much informed by it, really largely derived entirely from it, to the extent that the main takeaways from the flexible load working group was that the business as usual process seems to be working, that responsibilities split between Efficiency Vermont enabling these devices and the utility programs activating these devices is a sort of reasonable delineation of responsibilities. The cost, as I said, is reflective of the sort of current state of activation from the from programs and the customer engagement that we're seeing. So I think the FLM working group was sort of, I would say it's probably the start to a longer term discussion of what the total FLM investment in the state looks like. This is still largely new, and not every utility is taking it in the same direction. That's not for our purview to decide, and we would not proclaim to do so. So this proposal is really a reflection of that sort of status quo. Continue with the programs as they evolve, and until we sort of see a signal that these programs are really going to sort of accelerate or change significantly, this is our approach to sort of meeting the current need.
All right, thanks. And my last question about the FLM proposal, and you can try to answer now, but mostly this is kind of foreshadowing that we'll want to see some engagement on this as the case goes on, either through additional testimony or legal briefing when the time is ripe. I think what I heard is that the Efficiency Vermont claims kind of KW from flexible load, but no KWH. So my question is whether there are services or incentives for FLM measures that do not produce electric savings, and if that's the case, whether and how that is supported by existing statute.
Yeah, right now, Tom, our focus is on creating those electric system benefits, and those benefits do manifest in customer savings as well as ratepayer savings. And so we look at the elements of statute requiring the efficiency utility to not just reduce overall energy consumption, but to reduce those overall system costs. And so to the extent that FLM can reduce capacity at specific times, or pursuant to what the distribution utilities are using them for, they create those system benefits. And demand management is a whole section in our order of appointment. So I would be happy to continue that discussion and think about that for future elements of our filings in this case. But I'm pretty assured that we're well within that line.
Thank you. Those are all my questions for the moment.
And that being said, a lot of these measures are efficiency measures, right? If we need to install a new HVAC that has controlled load opportunities, we're going to make sure it's the most efficient version of that. So really, I don't want to lose sight of that fact that we look for those synergies throughout all of these projects. It's really in our DNA to do so.
Good. Thanks
So
for
at this
clarifying
point,
that.
excuse me, Mr. Pilliard, can we actually just go back one slide to the low-income fuel switch program?
Yep.
So in the triennial plan, the low-income fuel switch program is characterized as an EMA program. But my understanding is EVT is not pursuing EMA. So how is the low-income fuel switch program sort of consistent with the not going forward with EMA? Can you explain that a little bit to me?
I can. Yep. The low-income fuel switch program is not being paid for outside of the electric budget, and we claim no fuel savings from this budget. So these, in effect, are very expensive electric efficiency projects. As you know, Chair McNamara, the efficiency of a heat pump is characterized in two different ways. It's characterized by the fuel switch component, which is that, switching from a COP of, lower efficiency fuel burning furnace to a high COP heat pump creates fossil fuel savings. By and large, Efficiency Vermont doesn't take any of those savings, doesn't pay for any of those savings out of the TEPF budget. Those costs and savings are fully attributed to our distribution utility partners, who are also using this program as a primary means to support low-income spending in their Tier 3 programs. Our portion of the funding is entirely paid for out of the electric budget, which is the second component of how heat pumps are characterized, which is how efficient is the heat pump as an electric measure. Low efficiency heat pumps do exist. There are baselines established. Those are the lower cost, lower efficiency heat pumps that you would see in other climates. The high efficiency cold climate adapted heat pumps that we've worked with manufacturers on are much more efficient than those baseline units. And so that is primarily what we are claiming savings for. So it's an electric efficiency measure. We call that a market opportunity electric efficiency measure in our technical resource manual. And we do not claim that Tier 3 savings. So that was sort of there's a big question when Act 44, before that Act 151 was passed, was the legislature wanted a focused program on this. We ended up working much more collaboratively with our distribution utility partners, and we're able to sort of do that split. EMA is no longer necessary to do that. In fact, probably wasn't necessary at all to begin with.
Got it. Thank you. So essentially, it's roughly $2,500 for an efficient as opposed to an inefficient heat pump.
Yep. That's how we're characterizing it.
Okay. And I think you called this I'm not even going to try to characterize so I'm curious if it's broken out somewhere of the dollar per kWh savings for this program compared to the overall portfolio, for example.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like all, this is considered to be part of our low-income spending as part of our overall performance requirements, minimum spending on low income. It's a more expensive program. That is the case for every low-income based program that we run, as we expect. And so generally speaking, a lot of these low-income spending targets do not create the electric system benefits in the same proportion to, say, a commercial and industrial project would. But that is part of the policy that has been set for us moving forward with the low income. We can definitely follow up and get those numbers for you. Not part of this presentation, but I would absolutely expect them to be much higher in cost per megawatt hour savings because of what they are. They're effectively heat pumps for these prior weatherization clients of the WAPs, and they receive these heat pumps at no cost. So it will be a more expensive project.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Great questions. Happy to keep going. I know that we have 2 other EEUs to get to. We're back at
Just
heat
one
pumps.
question. Yeah,
Yep.
Dave, I just wanted to confirm my understanding that all measures and programs are in essence cost effective. That is, there's a benefit cost ratio of greater than 1. Am I correct in that?
Every measure is characterized for cost effectiveness, but it is the portfolio that is required to screen out, and that is very important for being able to offer things like low income programs, which often have more than just the cost of the measure, but also the cost of the labor and the cost of the installation components. And so there are higher costs associated with low income measures specifically. And so yes, we have the results for all of those programs, and no surprise, low income heat pump installations screen at a much lower rate on societal benefits than what a sort of market rate program or heat pump would cost.
Thank you.
Okay, so
back to you, Jay.
No other questions. We'll move on. So heat pumps. So we recently, the department did an evaluation on heat pumps, and the savings were adjusted downward accordingly. And we also identified that the measure costs needed to be updated. So those are both reflected in the current model as we have it. Those changes continue to go through the TRM process, but we put into the model the most current that we had. The heat pump quantities are lower than in the past. We are currently expecting about 8,000 units for residential and commercial ducted and ductless heat pumps per year. That's significantly lower than in the past, where we've been over 10,000. And that's largely due to just a lot of the cost drivers that we've talked about, the fact that the savings are lower, so our ability to perhaps increase incentives to try to drive more participation is limited. And the cost of these units, both the equipment and the labor to install them, has gone up. And loss of some of the incentives, tax incentives and others. So there's a lot of kind of downward pressure on the market. And so that's why we've reduced our proposal or estimate forecast is around 8,000 units per year. We are proposing a new, what we're calling a whole home heat pump initiative funding in the TEPF portfolio that I'll get to next. And that's really just an initiative to try to encourage more whole home solutions using heat pumps. And then we do have some heat pumps funded through TEPF, and that's basically heat pumps that aren't able to go through the Tier 3 program because either the particular DU doesn't have a Tier 3 program, or we're unable to kind of match it to the particular distribution utility account number, in which case we fund those and claim savings. It's estimated about 12% of the heat pumps that go through our larger midstream electric program. Next slide. This is just a graph of what I was just referring to. So it shows the historic heat pump quantities going back to 2015. You can see we had a significant increase over the last 10 years, and recently have been as high as 11,000 heat pumps in 2023. And so now going forward, we are expecting it to increase, but much slower, starting off at about the 5,000 or 8,000 I referred to, and kind of only increasing over the next 10 years of, up to about 9,000. So this is the kind of the new norm in terms of heat pump installations that we're anticipating. Next slide. So now, if there's no questions on electric, I can move over to our thermal energy and process fuel portfolio. We just have a few slides on this. So similar to the electric, here is our budget. As Dave mentioned, we're proposing, based on the RGGI and FCM revenues, we expect to be able to fund, have a budget of 13 million resource acquisition for the first 3 years. Then we're proposing it drops to 10 and then 9. So 10 for the next 3 years and then 9 for the last 4 years. So what we're really trying to do is maximize the amount of funds that are available, that we think will be available in the fund balance, to benefit Vermonters, really, to get those out to the programs. Have some level of consistency. We're talking about 3 years, keeping it consistent in these 3-year increments, but really trying to maximize the benefits, maximize funding for the programs that can then translate to benefit for Vermonters. And similar, we model in flat budgets in 2027 dollars, and the blue line reflects the nominal budgets. Next slide. This is similar to what I showed on electric. This is the sector splits for residential and commercial. And there's a slight change here. So you can see in 2024 to 26, we had an $8.5 million budget, and that was modeled at 75-25. So historically, that is the percentage split that we had done in terms of residential and CNI, going back quite a while. For this DRP, we're proposing increasing the residential portion to 80%, so an 80-20 split, and kind of keeping that ratio consistent over the 10-year period for the various budget levels that we're proposing. And that's really just on the residential side, the needs are high. We're trying to support a lot of different programs, and so we're proposing that we increase it to the 80%. Also, the lower chart shows the low income budget split. That historically has been 21%. Again, that recommendation from the department was, and we've been consistent to that as a modeled target for low income spending. As I'm going to show in the next slide, because we want to provide some additional funding for home repair for low-income customers, we are proposing for the first 3 years, for the 27-29, increasing that percentage share to 28.5%, or 3.7 million, and then starting in 2030, returning to the 21% sector split. Tom?
Yeah, I had a clarifying question. The lower table is the TEPF low income budget. In Dave Westman's pre-filed testimony, page 9, he talks about low to moderate income. And so this is really a clarification. Are we talking about the same thing there, using different terminology?
It's a great question. Yeah. So to clarify, when we refer to low income, that's below 80% below AMI. And we have certain programs that we are targeting towards moderate income, which can include low, because if a customer wants to participate in that program and not wait to go through a low income program, they can. We don't exclude them. So we call it low to moderate, but those programs are really greater than 80%. So what this budget refers to, what we're funding for lower than 80% AMI exclusively. So not moderate. This is low income. Did I say that correct, Dave? You can correct me.
Yeah.
Okay.
You did, Jake. Spot on. We have 3 categories: low, below 80% AMI, and then moderate, which is 80 to 120%. AMI, and then we consider market rate to be anything 120% above AMI. And my testimony does refer to a greater focus on LMI services, capturing that sort of both those bottom two brackets of below 80% and 80 to 120. But the low income spending minimum targets would only count towards what is directly identified either through customer attestation or direct services provided to 3E Thermal or direct services provided to the weatherization agencies, including what we'll get to in a second, the home repair funds. Those would all be counted towards this low income performance indicator.
Yes, these funds require some form of income verification. Okay. Next slide. So this is the expected annual MMBTU savings that we expect to forecast to be able to achieve with that level of budget. You know, we're proposing just over 100,000 MMBTUs for the first 3 years, and then you can see it pretty much kind of follows the budget available in later years. And then in blue, we show the historic actuals. So we were for 23 and 24, just slightly higher than that, around 110. We did have a big year in 2025. They're not verified savings yet. We were closer to 150. And a lot of that has to do with we had just happened to have in particular a bunch of industrial process related measures with projects with customers that brought in a lot of savings. We don't get those every year, as you can see. We happen to get a bunch in 2025, and that's what pulled that savings up. But we really think that kind of the new norm or more average level of savings that we expect to see is closer to the 100,000 at that level of funding for 27 to 29. Next slide. And this is the savings by end use stacked graph, similar to what we showed for the electric portfolio. Space heat fuel switch is the largest savings in this portfolio, so this is, and then it kind of goes up from there: space heating, weatherization, industrial process. Those are the kind of four primary bins. And again, you can kind of see it follows similar to the budget levels that are available, the funding that's available in terms of the savings we're able to achieve. Next slide. And then just to call out some focus on weatherization and home repair, we are proposing about 800 home performance jobs per year. And you can kind of see how it's split between market rate, which is we talked about, that's greater than the 120, and then LMI, which is below the 120. And you can see we're close to kind of 50-50 in terms of home performance, in terms of the home performance jobs, and then this, how they're funded. This includes both the electrically funded ones for homes that now have heat pumps, and therefore it's really electric savings with the weatherization, and then the TEPF or thermal projects, how those are funded, the funding split. We also include in the TEPF budget for 27 to 29, 1.5 million for home repair for low-income customers. And that's funding to basically take care of all those repairs needed to the home so that weatherization can actually happen. And that's a big barrier that we found especially for low-income customers. So we wanted to dedicate 1.5 million. As I mentioned in the previous slide, that's what drove it up to 28.5% for this first 3 years in terms of the percentage of the budget going to low income. And then we also have, we've also included, a lower budget, but still significant, 300,000 combined for our low to moderate income home repair program within Efficiency Vermont, rather than one that we turn over to the WAPs to deliver. And it also includes funding for the home energy loan program with a real focus on low to moderate income customers.
And I will jump in here and say this was one of the key learnings that we had from the stakeholder engagement throughout the summer was just how effective our current partnerships are with our weatherization agencies and their need for ongoing support for home repair, their likely funding situation going forward, in combination with what we have been implementing through contracts with the state. This home repair portion of the funding is really seen as critical for so many projects to proceed, and so this was seen as a very useful component to our portfolio, even if it wasn't being funded directly through regulated funds. And so with the conclusion of those contracts and grants from the state and federal government sources, we are putting this into the proposal for regulated funding use. And I see Adam has a question.
Hi, Adam McGeary from Conservation Law Foundation. I had a couple of questions. First, I wasn't sure if there was going to be another slide about the whole home heating program. Is that something you all are going to talk a little bit more about?
No, this is, I think I only have one more slide.
Okay, so can I ask a little bit more detail about that program? A couple of things come to mind, just sort of what the incentive structure would look like and whether there would be program requirements like sizing or guaranteed like a certain percentage of the home being used through that program. Like I know Efficiency Maine has an 80% requirement for their rebates for their whole home program, and kind of what percentage of the budget that would take up.
I'm not prepared to speak to that level of detail. Dave, are you, or would this be better for a follow-up?
It would be very good, Adam, for us to have that conversation throughout the calendar year 2026 as we're developing that program. As of right now, the DRP has a placeholder for that whole home program being live and effective in 2027. We are making a lot of placeholders for what that will yield in savings based on our sort of best information, but how the program actually looks and exactly those questions, and they're great questions, will be what our program managers are thinking about in 2026 as we prepare to roll this out. And it is a very complex process, not just what the customer experiences, but also how that engagement looks with contractors, whether it's a ducted system or a combined mini split system based on the home itself. We're really approaching this with a wide net to see what it looks like. And so I think we would welcome your engagement throughout the year as we're working on this.
Thank you. That's really helpful. And just one more follow-up about the heat pumps just generally. I have the sort of sense that maybe where your proposal is that it kind of assumes the same usage patterns that we saw from the report from the department. And I'm just wondering, I know Efficiency Vermont in particular had their sort of home, heat pump deployment program that was kind of developed shortly thereafter, but I wonder if you can just speak to whether or not, I'm trying to get a sense of like whether we're trying to shift those usage patterns or just like assuming that pattern is correct and that's how we're going to kind of have that inform the proposal. So if you could speak a little bit to that, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say that absolutely, our goal is to shift the usage pattern, and we expect it will shift. So I think what you're seeing is the way we model it is today's usage pattern, like the best data that we have based on the most recent evaluation. I think that's one reason that we do this demand resource planning every 3 years, is that it gives us an opportunity to then change it if we think it's changed or that there's a new forecast. So I think in the future, we're going to see a different energy usage profile and savings levels due to that. But this definitely, our proposal currently reflects kind of today's reality, which is today's usage pattern. Okay. So if no other questions, I'll go. I think this is my last slide, I believe, and then I'll turn it back over to Dave. This just shows our forecasts of total housing units weatherized, both electric and thermal, including multifamily. So my previous discussion around the 800 was home performance. And this includes which single family, and this includes the multifamily. So this number of housing units is what's reflected in our QPI proposal for total housing units weatherized per year. So, Tom?
Not necessarily a question about this slide, but I wanted to ask you a question, Jay, before we hand it over to Dave. In your exhibit 1, you identify some of the new measures that Efficiency Vermont will be implementing during the performance period, and one of them is energy code support attribution. So I just wanted to make sure that I understand the proposal here. I believe what I saw is in the residential sector, Efficiency Vermont proposes to claim savings associated with exceeding the residential building code. Is that correct? And also, can you tell me the proposal on the commercial side of things?
Yeah, so that's this is a new proposal that we're working on. We do have some placeholders in the model for these measures. The idea basically being that we're working with the department on and trying to move forward is to be able to claim a certain level of savings for helping builders and customers achieve code, right? There's a lot of work that we've done historically in terms of training, in terms of site visits, to kind of get them from where they are, even just to code. Now, and then typically we're trying to get them beyond, and we've always just claimed the savings for getting beyond. And we're continued to claim the savings for getting beyond, but we want to introduce an additional new measure that allows us to claim savings for recognizing the work that we're doing to just get them to code, because code compliance, as we know, is quite low. The amount of work that we're having to do out in the field and with the marketplace is just increasing, but we don't get any savings credit for it. And you know, other program administrators around the country have also started to adopt the same approach, which is be able to claim some level of savings for that, just getting them to code, in addition to what we've historically always done, which is claim for going beyond. What that level of savings, how to claim that savings is complicated. And that's why we've been working with the department and continue to work with the department through the tag process to see if we can reach an agreement on how to calculate that and what that level of savings should be. So we agreed with the department to put a placeholder in the model. It's a moderate level of savings that just kind of represents that, and then it needs to go through the tag process. Is that helpful? Is that clear?
It is. Thank you.
Okay, great. Ed?
So Mr. Pilliard, back to this slide, the forecast of housing units weatherized. When you look at all the prior slides on TEPF, the one showing budget and then BTU savings, there's a significant drop off in 2030, and that's not showing on this slide. In other words, it's relatively flat, starts dropping in 2033. Can you explain why there isn't a commensurate drop here that shows up elsewhere?
It's a great observation. Yes, and that's because we essentially are shifting funds purposely in order to maintain the level of weatherization jobs. So, you know, for instance, we don't have that one. We are not planning at this point proposing of having the 1.5 million home repair funds, for instance, for low income continue into the second performance period. So that freed up 1.5 million, and we said, let's put that towards our, you know, especially low to moderate income weatherization projects to really achieve this goal, which is to keep it level. And then in the last 4 years, it does drop slightly, but the goal was really to prioritize weatherization.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, I'll turn it back over to you, Dave.
Yes, thank you. And I know that we're very long on time. Thank you for the great questions from the commissioners, the staff, and other stakeholders and partners here on the call. So I'll just quickly review our DSS budget proposal. A big change that took place after discussion with the department and a PUC proceeding on the matter was that the majority of information systems category, which was a significant portion of the DSS budget, has now shifted to resource acquisition. That's something like 90% of our information systems, i.e. software costs and maintenance of all of the sort of digital infrastructure that supports the EEU has now moved to resource acquisition. In addition, and I think this is really what is going to be helpful, is to talk about some of the shifts in categories and initiatives, which are going to be a little bit more intuitive, we think, to follow. And so here is what is presented in our proposal, a streamlining of well over a dozen different initiatives bundled into separate categories. That we've now streamlined and sort of more appropriately taken the scope of work into what the category is, including a new category entirely focused around ISO New England forward capacity market management. Incidentally, forward capacity market, probably not long for this world. It's being reconfigured, as many of you know, the capacity auction reform moving to a prompt and seasonal market. That's frankly one of the reasons why putting this into a separate budget, it's essentially going to be a new market by the time this next performance period is over. And so we want to be able to track those costs within its own category. Otherwise, admin and reg affairs has been significantly consolidated to include the reporting structure. Honestly, the regulatory team sort of goes back and forth between proceedings like the DRP or proceedings like the EEU and Tier 3 thermal proceeding or reporting. And so we put that all under one category to sort of reflect the fact that all of that work is being done. Also wanted to note that the public affairs budget was also subject to a PUC proceeding in the last 3 years to define specific uses of that public affairs budget, which is also reflected in the budget proposal. So to wrap this up, our 3-year budgets are here for the record. This is also in our these are also in our filings from December 12th, but wanted to be sure to put it out there. We've got a 3-year DSS budget total of 7.3. As the earlier slide said, this is about $4 million less because of that shift to the from information systems to the RA budget. So with that, I know we've taken up a lot of time, but if there's any final questions, we can answer them. Is that Brian Kelman?
Yes. Hi, Dave. Get on camera here. I had one question about this, and I had 2 other small follow-ups, if that's okay.
I will defer to time management for the commission, but we're happy to answer any questions.
Okay, I'll move forward until someone says no.
Great.
Is that good? Okay.
That works.
Thank you. On slide 30, this is a clarification question really quick. So items like general administration, are there also components of general administration within the program costs? Or asked another way, are all those costs stripped out and put in under DSS? Or when you are running a program, are there some general admin costs, public affairs costs, savings verification costs, et cetera, in that program cost line?
Yeah, we have a long list of categorized administrative costs. General administration is a term that is used in the DSS budget category for very specific things like staff management, staff meetings that are not specific to individual topics that wouldn't fit into a normal billing code. So it's pretty minimal, but overall, we have a whole category of administrative costs identified. Incidentally, that admin and reg affairs is entirely categorized as administrative, as is evaluation, as is ISO New England capacity market management. Those are all those are not directly related to program costs, and so we do count them in our admin efficiency QPI. So it's a much broader term than that.
Right. And if you were able to kind of tag it to a program cost, it might be in there.
Program costs have by and large been sort of getting out of the DSS budget. That was part of the reason why we moved the information system costs into resource acquisition. Was this was a finding from the department several years ago now, and we have worked on a solution to migrate those costs because it is appropriately. It's not. It is no longer sort of fair to say that those software costs are indirectly related to programs. Programs really are dependent on those software costs.
That's great. Thanks. I had a clarification question to the answer to Commissioner Allen's question earlier about individual measures being screened. I think the answer to that is that the overall portfolio screens, but individual measures may not screen. And I'm not sure I heard that correctly. And I guess the clarification would be around, is that portfolio or program?
Portfolio.
Okay, so you could have a program cost that would be a bit higher cost, but when you average everything together in the portfolio, everything screens.
Correct. Examples of that would include, as we were talking about with Chair McNamara, the low income program spending may not screen in every example. By and large, those low income programs, especially around weatherization, do create societal health benefits, which are calculated under our societal screening tool, but also the residential programs, which residential programs can be very expensive on a dollar per megawatt hour basis. And so those programs do tend to track higher, but we try to generally keep those well within the range of screening. But overall, the societal screen is for the entire portfolio, and then we have a secondary screen for electric system benefits. At the end of each year, we calculate total spending on the electric side to EEC. Electric system benefits. That's called the minimum performance requirement for electric system benefits. It has to be greater than 1.
Great, and thanks for the extra questions. My last one is this one. On the overall proposed portfolio, when you look at the overall cost for the portfolio, it could be program specific, but overall from the portfolio standing, how does that relate to the avoided energy and capacity costs that are kind of being presented in the avoided cost docket that's going on right now? And I know EVT is submitting what those avoided energy and capacity costs are. How should we relate that to the portfolio costs that you're presenting for the 2027 through 2032 period?
Yeah, those avoided costs are used in both determining the societal screening results and the electric system benefits. So those are two different sets of equations with different numerators and denominators. Pretty lengthy explanation to sort of begin with, but that avoided cost proceeding sets the sort of those numbers for what goes into those equations based on program spending, benefits received, savings achieved through this portfolio. It's an indirect relationship to the scope of the portfolio. It sort of follows under that screening methodology, though.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Good questions. Okay, I yield back to the commission. Thanks for the additional time. Great questions.
Thank you. I'd suggest we take a break until 11:05 and then have Burlington start presenting. So we're going to take a break, 9 minutes, 11:05. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, Mr. Lyle, if you could get the presentation teed up.
Certainly. Give me a
Thanks.
second here. Let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Put it in presentation mode. Of course, there we go. It didn't go away, did it?
Oh, still there.
All right.
Well said.
Success.
Great.
Should we start or?
Yes, please.
You want, okay. Well, thank you, Commissioner McNamara and other commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity, Burlington Electric. We have about 24 slides, so hopefully we can kind of make up some ground here. I structured our presentation around the commission's questions in their notice of the workshop. Essentially, why, how and why BED's DRP proposal is similar to or different from the department's potential study. The answer is very quick and easy. And the second major question the commission asked was, what significant changes are being proposed in this DRP relative to the 24-26 DRP? So we'll go through that. Also have a couple other slides that kind of focus in on what our DRP is about and just a high level summary of what our proposal includes. I should note here also, I forgot, Chris Burns is here with me, who did file testimony. I'll be presenting most of the material in the slides today, but Chris will obviously jump in when needed to help me out along the way. We put in this slide, why efficiency, just to kind of a level set a little bit and remind ourselves why we're doing efficiency. And this slide has, we've relied on this slide quite a bit. It works its way into multiple documents before the commission, the IRP, the DRP, and other commission filings. So, the takeaway here is that Burlington Electric has been doing electric efficiency for quite some time, but for our efficiency efforts, energy consumption would still continue to climb. So back to the main questions that the commission has asked here. So how and why is our proposal similar or different from the potential study that was submitted by the department's consultants, GDS and Brightline? The quick and easy answer is it's the same. I would note, however, that the GDS potential study had kind of two flavors to it. We selected the A scenario, if you will, which includes cold climate heat pumps as part of the measure mix in our portfolio, mostly focused around residential or directed at residential customers, although there are some small businesses that take advantage of ductless heat pumps as well, and essentially ducted heat pumps. Also, we worked very closely with GDS and Brightline as they were pulling together the potential study. We provided them with a lot of data, historical data, gave them a lot of information about the specifics of Burlington's market, things we've mentioned in the past, the high rental, the high amount of rental tenants and customers, and the predominance of the commercial sector as well. Just some other notes in terms of the potential study. It does set up an equity splits as 30% residential, 70% commercial. Within the residential, you will see about a 6.7% of the budget is allocated toward income eligible. Like EVT, the income eligible is defined as those households that are 80% or lower than the AMI. Okay, so the potential study. So basically, we lifted all of the potential study results out of the study and put it into our proposal. If you were to line up GEDS's potential study by major end use, this is basically what you will you will see. This slide is a little bit different than EVT's stacked results, megawatt hour savings results. This is actually cumulative, annual cumulative. That's why you see the growing wedge, if you will. So this is again is all the residential. Where we plan to get the residential megawatt hour savings from. As you see, it's mostly around, if you can see my cursor here, so heat pumps are this big gray area, appliances and hot water are the major measures. Also some ventilation, I believe, is in here as well. In years past, you would have seen, most of this wedge was really all about lighting. You can't even see the wedge. I think it's like right in here, right above the yellow. So that's basically what's going on in terms of our savings goals for the residential class. In terms of budget, breaking out income eligible is the orange line here, and the market rate is the blue line. So just over $500,000 cumulative starting out in 2027, and inflation adjusted for inflation over the years. Just pause there. I know I'm going pretty fast. Yeah, go ahead, Ed.
Yeah, just looking at the spread over time for income eligible versus the overall residential. I'm just curious where that's coming from. In other words, income eligible doesn't seem to be keeping up with the budget adjustments or the inflation adjustment as you go forward.
Yeah, it may be optics. Basically, I applied 2% inflation to the budgets over time. It may just be that we're starting at a much lower base than the residential market rate numbers.
Maybe it is just optical illusion. I thought that was a deliberate, but you're saying they should actually be increasing proportionally. Okay.
They should be. Yeah. I'm sitting here right here. I'm a little perplexed as to why it looks. I mean, I guess it does look a little bit different. You're really just talking about the slope of the curve relative to the market rate slope.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the intent is to keep those consistent, though. That's great. All right.
Okay. So and this is what the commercial sector looks like in terms of major end uses and where the savings are coming from. Here, again, it's taken right out of the GDS potential study. There is still a considerable amount of lighting opportunity. The wedge looks big, but relative to past years, it's not so big. So this blue is really kind of lighting, and like EVT had mentioned before, a lot of this is around controls, lighting designs, things of that nature, and outdoor fixtures and things of that nature. And then down below is ventilation and other heating and cooling, RTUs, rooftop units, and those types of measures. And then in terms of the commercial budget, I should note that this is RA only, again, inflation adjusted. And so we're starting out at just over $1.2 million thereabouts for both business existing facility programs and business new construction. And now what these next couple of slides is I'm kind of comparing, which gets to your one of your other questions is, how does it differ from the past? So this slide here is really kind of meant to compare the RA resource acquisition budget only and to what we have been spending over the past 10 years or so. It's a bit of an apples and oranges comparison only because the proposal, as I mentioned, is really inflation adjusted, whereas the average is just taking, I've taken the spending, RA spending out of our annual reports and just did a 10-year average and just left it at that. So I haven't adjusted it in real terms or for inflation at all. But the takeaway here is going forward, we're actually, you know, at a much lower starting point in terms of budgeting for an electric energy efficiency programs. So this is kind of a reflection of the new reality of electric efficiency in Burlington as well as the rest of Vermont. You know, just to follow up on EVT, I think, you know, we are finding efficiency measures harder and more expensive to acquire and promote, and so it's just it's raising the bar for everybody in terms of trying to get new electric efficiency measures and savings. So and then this is a comparison to where the portfolio savings are, the proposed portfolio savings are relative to what the 10-year average has been, just to kind of put things in perspective. So savings potential is quite a bit lower than it has been in past years, again, mostly because of lighting, especially in our market where it's so, there's so you know, commercial customers are so predominant, and that's where a lot of our past savings have come from, both from the commercial sector and especially with lighting. So here's just another lens of what we're proposing compared to what we've done in the past. You know, again, so starting 27, the blue columns here are the proposed budgets, and the orange line is the proposed savings. And the takeaway here is, you know, markedly different from, you know, what we've been doing in the past, but the savings are kind of tracking downwards. And so it kind of, we're resetting the bar in terms of new savings going forward, and then setting the budgets accordingly. It looks high only because it's been adjusted for inflation here, so I don't have real dollars. Otherwise, it would be, you know, the dollar spending would be considerably lower. The budget would be considerably lower. So I'll just pause there for a sec if there's any questions. Not seeing any.
Just a quick question on the last slide. So there's significant sort of variability year by year. Is that largely a reflection of the fact that it's the college and the hospital? So you can have, depending on the projects that come in the pipeline through them?
You're talking about savings?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, Chris, you can help me out here. A lot of it is driven by, you know, business new construction, big projects that come and go, that get delayed. Yeah, and UVM especially, I think, is a big driver of that, and other big projects, like is it the downtown build out, Chris?
Yeah, it's the inherent lumpiness of what we're doing. You know, as you look at lighting and you look at how accessible those retrofits were to people, HVAC, you don't get that to come around all the time. They're longer lives, they're more expensive, they're more complicated. So we're going to see more lumpiness, especially in a small territory like ours. And as you know, new construction, some years we have some great ones and some years we have none. So I hope that is responsive.
Yes, thank you. And so the forecasted, it looks nice and relatively neat, and you expect that it probably would be a little bit lumpier as well in reality. So, but understand that you still have to do a forecast. Got it?
Yep.
Thanks.
Tom, this is Riley. On that slide, it's apparent that the benefit cost ratios historically were, good compared to what we're looking at going forward. Do you have off the top of your head an estimate of what the benefit cost ratios are kind of looking forward?
I believe in Plan A, I do have some information in there about the first year cost savings. This doesn't get directly to your question, but it gives you a sense as to how that the cost of the savings are getting more expensive. Overall, yes, the benefit cost ratio are positive on a portfolio basis, although there may be measures in especially programs in the low income area that are marginal or under less than 1 benefit cost ratio. I don't have a number right off the top of my head at this point, but we can take that as a data request and get back to you.
Sure. It's probably in the materials. I'll just I'll look for it. But yeah, if you can get back, that'd be great.
Okay. So benefit cost ratio for the portfolio, or
just for the portfolio would be great.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Moving on. Okay. The next couple of slides are all in Plan A and Plan B for that matter. And so these should look familiar. Basically, we take the potential study and the proposed budgets for resource acquisition and put them into the commercial sector, residential and income eligible sector. And then we add on to that the DSS costs and then the DPS and other regulatory costs. So this is just kind of the way we've laid it out on a sector level and the savings on a yearly basis down below, which then work into our QPIs. One of our major QPIs, obviously, is megawatt hour savings at the end of 3 years. So the target that we're shooting for is 4947 megawatt hours. I have other slides on DSS that we can later in the slide deck that we can spend a little bit more time on. But for the interest of time, I'll just keep going here real quickly. So this slide is just the same budget by sector out to 2032. Same with the savings down below by sector. And then what we do outside of GDS's efforts is to take their sector level budgets and sector level savings and then turn them into programs. And so, this is a bit of a, educated guessing work in terms of how many big projects are going to come forward over the next couple of years, especially with new construction and the timing. And then we allocate the budget accordingly. And then from there, based on like the historical megawatt hour yield, we then translate the budget into savings by program. So that's kind of the essence of what you're seeing here on this slide. So it's just taking sector level budgets and savings and turning them into program level savings and budgets, and in that way, it's a little bit better to manage the programs and the overall budget. Okay, yeah, and so DSS budgets. This is our proposed DSS budget. So overall, 622,800 for these categories. As mentioned earlier by EVT, the missing line item on this slide is the information technology line item, which is included up here as an RA cost. So we just essentially moved everything up to RA, in line with Commission's order and the past and the last DRP proceedings. So. And the big takeaway here is because we got some questions in the data discovery period about the differences between what we're proposing for DSS and what has been proposed in previous DSS, is the overall budget is roughly the same. If you're looking at 2027-29, it's $615,000 versus 622. Of course, what's missing here is the IT of about $60,000. So the reason why we're proposing an increase here is the admin and regulatory expenses. We're anticipating a bit more spending in that area. We are looking to hire and put more people on the regulatory front in terms of following through and with compliance filings and things of that nature. So that's the main reason why there is an increase, an effective increase, if you were to include the IT expenses in this. So I'll just pause there for a second. I don't know if you have any questions or. Okay. And then ultimately there's the rate and bill impact. So we're anticipating, based on the budget proposal, is about on average, 2.1% increase in rate, but a 2.65% decrease in bills for participants. So this is also included in the Plan A. And so kind of recap the electric side of the DRP. So some of the significant changes are, obviously the budget and the annual megawatt hour savings goals are much lower. The DSS budget is slightly higher. And QPIs, MPRs are lower as well to reflect the reduced potential study results. So the other big takeaway here is that EEC funds are not going to be used to support Tier 3 measures and programs. We're assuming that the EMA, under Plan A, the EMA is not extended beyond 2026.
So just to be clear, we saw from Efficiency Vermont that there was essentially part of the program activities were related to load management. Is there anything in your budget that is related to load management?
Not funded through the EEU, or not funded with EEC dollars is another way to say it. If you're talking about demand response programs like Defeat the Peak, other work that's being done on flexible load, that's really being taken care of under the distribution utility wheelhouse. So
Okay.
it's funded through distribution utility operating funds. It's a whole different accounting structure.
Understood. Thanks.
Okay. Okay. Where was I? Okay. So yeah, moving on to TEPF. This is Plan A. It gets, this is about as basic as it can get. This slide is taken right out of the Plan A proposal. It's, a much streamlined activity, much streamlined budget and savings goals, and reflective of the, lack of opportunities in the Burlington area if EMA is not extended. So it does result in, fairly significant over collections over time if we're not able to use those funds in other areas, if we don't have the flexibility that we currently have under the existing EMA. So significant changes from This Plan A compared to what's in place right now is, like I said, the EMA is not extended. Their budgets are much reduced. The savings are much reduced, as would be the QPIs and NPRs. There are much fewer customer benefits relative to Plan B, which I have another slide we can also go into if you'd like. And so that's really kind of Plan A. We do have one of the open proceedings, and we do have a straw proposal on what to do, or a proposed plan on what to do with these excess funds. And now we just turn your attention to docket 25-3116 and also docket 260052, where we propose to use excess funds, if you will, a portion of the excess funds, if you will, to be directed at the CAPS in Burlington doing projects within the city limits for weatherization and or to support their warmth program. So I don't know if there's, Tom, go ahead.
I think you're getting to what my question was going to be is that, I think under Plan A, you project about $1.7 million in excess TEPF funds. And right. So I don't want to get ahead of you. If BED has plans for what it would do with that money, that would be a very helpful thing to see in the record in this case.
Yeah. Let Chris and I kind of take that back, and I think you're right. I think we need to kind of round out the plan. It's all they're straw proposals. They've been proposed. We've been wanting to kind of put a little bit more context and structure around the proposal, and then take it to the department and talk with them a little bit more. So I agree. I think it does at this point in time. It's a little. It needs some more refinement at this point in time. So let's just put a placeholder on that, and we'll follow up with a little bit more detail. I would also add that we are moving forward with at the legislature with proposing additional language to extend the EMA, and that kind of brings me to Plan B. It's if the statute does get extended, we do have plans for that money. As you can see in this slide here, we would redirect those funds to a lot of other programs. This straw proposal will still be out there to the extent that we're not able to support weatherization programs. We would still direct some amount of money to the CAPS and who are doing projects in Burlington. But as you can see, we've proposed under Plan B lots of different programs, including a nominal amount of weatherization for residential customers, and the ZEM program, the Zero Energy Modular program. Those still stay in place under Plan B. But we also are cognizant of using the excess or surplus funds, if you will, revenues from RGGI and Forward Capacity Market to support electric panel upgrades for income eligible homes, and to continue supporting the GeoWell testing programs, continue to support other fairly large scale commercial programs, all with the intent of reducing greenhouse gas emissions and benefiting customers in terms of their overall energy costs, not just their electric costs, but their overall energy costs. So, and that's what this slide is really meant to do, is to kind of just summarize very quickly what our Plan B proposal is. And so
So, Mr. Lyle, just a quick question on the prior slide. And this is a request for a follow-up. Tier 3 enhancements is the single largest category by dollar. I'd be curious as to, could you do a comparison of, if you did not do Plan B, what would the expectation be for the budget for Tier 3 in 2027 through 2029? So in other words, I see this to me looks as if you're supplanting some of the Tier 3 funding to get to the necessary regulatory requirements. So what would your Tier 3 budget be without this money? Does that question make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Let us take it back. I mean, so I would politely argue that we're not necessarily supplanting, we're augmenting is the term I would hope we could use. And so the Tier 3 budgets, first of all, it would hard be sitting here today to develop a budget for 2027 on the Tier 3 side. My expectation is that we will continue to provide Tier 3. When I say Tier 3, it's under the DU side of the operations. They're billed to the DU accounts. There will be Tier 3 programs that are supported by the DU side of the house. And what this is proposing to do also is to keep our incentives, customer incentives, in place for as long as possible, even into 2027. Again, assuming the EMA is extended and we have this authority to augment Tier 3 incentives. So they're kind of like these different buckets that are set up for, if you look on our website, you look at the customer incentives, all the customer cares about is the total dollar amount, $2,500 for an EV. But behind the scenes, there's some money that's being, some of the incentive money is paid for out of the DU accounts. Some of the money is paid out of the EEU accounts. And that's what would happen in this scenario that you're seeing under Plan B. Does that answer your?
It does. I'd still be interested in, on the DU side, what your planning budget is roughly for 2027 through 2029 for Tier 3. And that could be a simple straight line projection from the last couple of years, for example, to achieve the necessary reductions required by Tier 3.
Yep.
So great. Thank you.
Okay, just taking a note here. Okay, I'm sorry. James? Sorry.
Yeah, hi. So in both Plan A and Plan B, we're proposing here the same amount of spending on the zero emissions manufacturing program throughout the next DRP.
Yes.
How many homes have taken advantage of that program over the past couple of years?
With 3, right, Chris?
Correct.
And that's been in the past 3 years in the current DRP?
Over the past 2 DRPs.
What about during this the DRP that's currently in effect?
I would have to check. It's either 0 or 1 in 2024.
And that's my recollection just looking through BED's filings in this docket. And I think BED, I think you guys have explained as well that there are significant sort of headwinds currently in taking advantage of this program. And I guess my question following up on those would be, what makes BED confident that there's going to be this level of uptake of the program in the next DRP?
Yeah, it's a fair question. I mean, there are lots of headwinds, and I think you're kind of wading into this area where we feel like there's this catch-22 issue that we've been trying to contend with, and we've expressed this in at least a couple of different dockets before the commission. if we don't propose higher budgets and then projects do come up, right? If we're presented with an opportunity, and this would be a really good opportunity to really help a community, then we wouldn't be able to do it very quickly. We would have to kind of, petition to move money from one area that's underspent to the zero energy module program, for example, in order to support that and go through that process. So for us, it seems like it's kind of a catch-22, but if we don't propose a budget, we have to turn people away. But if we do propose a budget, then and no projects come up, then we're like, oh, well, we just left a bunch of opportunities on the table and walked in, right? So it's kind of, I know this is an exercise in trying to be as precise as possible, but this is not a precise world.
And I assume that you run into the same issues with commercial buildings where it's lumpy. Do you currently have a contractor who you would work with for this program?
The ZEM program?
Yes.
Yeah. Chris,
Who
can
is
you
that?
help me out on this? It's all run through Champlain Housing Trust.
Yeah, the term now is advanced manufactured homes, and there are, across the border, Maine, New Hampshire, there are folks that are making these buildings. We don't have one contractor. It's really through the Champlain Housing Trust home ownership program, and trying to get someone to select, a better option, a more efficient option. And they can go to, as far as we know, they have several options. As opposed to years ago when we were talking only about, a manufacturer in Vermont. There are more options out there now.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think, again, this kind of gets to, what's different. So between Plan B and Plan A, I think we touched on all of these bullet points here. Again, we assume the EMA is extended, with additional regulatory flexibility, there are greater opportunities to reduce greenhouse gas emissions that are, won't be necessarily claimed under TEPF. Again, based on the current proposal, legislative proposal, we believe that, under Plan B, there are greater low-income eligible benefits and lower total energy bills for customers. So, again, part of our proposal under this Plan B is also to, again, earmark dollars for weatherization, given if there is still budget left, that we would direct some of that money to this CVEO or other CAPs that are doing projects in Burlington. So, and I think that's it for me. Yeah. Again, this is kind of just summarizing Plan B in terms of income eligible. There's funding, be able to to continue the electric panel upgrade programs, especially for income eligible folks. We would be able to continue our geo well testing program, which has led to a bunch of fairly large scale geo systems that have been built in the city. So I think a lot of people are familiar with the Hula building is heated with the geo. We are wrapping up another geo system at the Wheeler School. Because I'm drawing, there's another one out there. Obviously, Champlain College has one as well. What's the other one? I can't remember. The high school. is another big geo system. So yeah, I don't know if you want to chime in and add anything else to that, Chris.
No, I just talking about how the traditional EEU electric services and budgets dovetails nicely with projects like this, where we can encourage something like a geo system, where these dollars can be used to do that, which is, a barrier is who wants to spend 15 to 30 plus $1,000 on a test well, and you don't know what you're going to get. We take that barrier down a little bit. If the project goes ahead, a full geo system goes in as the HVAC, then the EEU side of the house can come in and make it the best building we can make it. So there we can really dive down into envelope, controls, all of the pieces and parts that go into making a high performance building. So the reason we press this is the coordination between the two buckets of money can be very meaningful. The new Burlington High School right now on paper from the energy model is going to be among the highest performing buildings we've ever seen, which says something in this economic climate where value engineering is a huge problem, where energy efficiency tends to be thrown to the side because costs are so high. The team did not do it for the new high school, so we're pretty pleased to date.
Okay, and that wraps it up.
All right, any questions for BED?
Yes, I did have one question. This goes back to Mr. Burns' pre-filed testimony. The question in the testimony was whether BED's proposal had reflected greenhouse gas emission reduction estimates for the electric savings. And the response was that because BED sources 100% of its power from renewable sources, that BED felt it was unnecessary to report emissions reductions in its DRP proposal. So, I guess the question is whether BED is, should BED be requesting, a waiver of that provision in the process and administration document, or is there something I'm missing? And whether whether BED's approach is consistent with the currently approved avoided costs methodology.
Yeah. Yeah, this is it's kind of a difficult question to answer right here on the spot. I mean, this kind of wades into the area of whether and how we would go about calculating marginal emissions. Is that what you're really kind of getting at, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, so and understand that I don't necessarily need a full answer now, but it's something that's on our minds.
Yeah.
So I guess the question would be, is this approach consistent with the commission's approved avoided cost methodology? We'd want a response to that. And my understanding is the record right now does not include any quantification of greenhouse gas emissions reductions. Is that consistent with the requirements of the P&A? If not, should BED be requesting a waiver, and what would be the basis for that waiver?
Yeah,
So
I mean,
that's what,
let me. I think I have to go back and kind of refamiliarize myself with that section of the P&A, and then most likely we'll end up, asking for a waiver. It gets, in my view, it gets a little complicated because BED is much different from most of the rest of the state in that, yes, energy efficiency is avoiding some emissions on the grid, but after the fact, BED, as everybody knows, trades, the credits and all our generation is considered to be renewable. So how is it that energy efficiency actually avoids greenhouse gas emissions on its system if it's characterized as all renewable? So it's a little, in my view, it's kind of a gray area a bit. So.
All right, request that you take this question back, and would like to hear more from you, and strongly encourage you to review the last avoided cost decision by the commission to see what the commission said there.
Okay, yes. Decision. Okay. That's all I have.
Someone had raised their hand, Jevons Paradox.
Yeah, hi, this is Pike Porter, Burlington Ratepayer. Just a quick follow-up request based on the last question. If the answer to that question could be posted in this current docket, and if the previous docket that Thomas referenced could be, provided. The avoided rate case. What docket number is that? If that could either be provided now or later. Thank you.
Yep. Okay.
All right. Anything else? Okay. Thanks, folks. Why don't we move on to VGS?
Okay. Okay, stop saving or sharing my set. There we go. Sorry.
Great.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Beautiful. Well, thanks for everybody's time and interest this morning in all of our collective demand resources plan. My name is Tim Perrin. I manage our energy efficiency programs here at Vermont Gas Systems. We have a relatively short set of slides that are intended to be responsive to some of the commission's framing questions, but we'll be happy to answer any questions on the fly. So first, focusing on how we're evolving our programs for the upcoming triennial plan. Based on feedback that we've received from over 30 stakeholders, including partners, business customers, as well as a survey that was provided to our residential customers, these are some of the key themes and areas of focus for our energy efficiency programs for the upcoming 3-year period. We're continuing to double down on equity for income eligible customers, so the low and moderate income households that were mentioned earlier, as well as focusing some additional attention and support for small and mid-sized businesses, and particularly those that have been historically underserved through traditional channels. We're also looking to help continue transforming markets through simplifying engagement, through the point of purchase program that we have in place for providing rebates for high efficiency natural gas equipment. We're looking to expand that beyond just residential and small commercial, but to larger commercial equipment, as well as updating some of the improvements within our website to provide more self-service options. And actually, interestingly enough, this week have opened our doors again to customers who may be walking in to pay their bill or have an efficiency question. So we're really looking to continue meeting customers where they're at, whether it's through accessing things on our website or just a good old-fashioned conversation here in the building. We're continuing to focus on the no-regret solution of weatherization and expanding some of our support for home repair, home readiness, and health and safety upgrades that may stand in the way of being able to support customers, both single family as well as multifamily, with being able to proceed with a comprehensive weatherization project. Hybrid systems, dual fuel capabilities that combines a natural gas, high efficiency natural gas equipment with heat pumps has been our focus over the last 3 years. And we're continuing to promote and accelerate work in our upcoming tri-plan with a QPI that's specific towards the deployment of integrated controls that can tie those types of systems together and give users the option of whether they're running their heat pump or their natural gas system as their primary heating system based on outside air temperature, as well as their willingness to pay perhaps a little bit more to reduce their carbon emissions. With all of this work, we need to continue strengthening our community partnerships, both with partners that we're currently working with, as well as community-based organizations, as well as business associations that have the ear and the trust of a lot of some of the underserved businesses and income eligible customers that we're looking to continue working with. And as Efficiency Vermont had mentioned as part of some of their presentation, we're engaged with the Department of Public Service right now in terms of what could unlocking EU dollars for code compliance support for both residential and new construction look like. So in addition to continuing to support high performance beyond code buildings, how can we potentially support and enhance the number of buildings that are at least meeting code so that we're continuing to transform some of that new construction marketplace? I've included our kind of highlights of our residential programs as scaffolding. Folks may remember from our presentation back in our tri-plan update that a lot of these services are currently in the portfolio. And I've highlighted in blue some of the updates that we have for the upcoming 3-year period. So in addition to our 0% financing over 5 years that we offer for both weatherization and equipment upgrades, we've been engaged in some early conversations with Green Mountain Credit Union to be able to expand the term to 10 years at a nominal 1.99% rate to be able to reduce the monthly payment for customers that right now still are having trouble making making the investment in weatherization and high performance equipment. We're also continuing to expand some of our financing as well as direct incentives for home repair and weatherization readiness, both through making reimbursements directly to our partner CVOEO for some of their low-income weatherization program, as well as working directly with some of our low-income customers that are opting to work with us and being able to fully fund some of those home repair items that could help unlock those comprehensive weatherization programs. And with all of this, making a shift administratively to being able to enable contractor direct payments. So as opposed to a customer, a single family homeowner, maybe needing to shell out $10,000 for a weatherization project, and then wait a couple of weeks for the paperwork to be submitted and processed before we could get their $7,000 rebate check to them, making these payments directly to the contractor so that the end use customer is only on the hook for the net out-of-pocket costs, which is a shared goal of all of our programs to help accelerate weatherization efforts. Within our efficient equipment programs, doubling down and increasing some of our support for integrated controls on those dual fuel heating systems, combining a high efficiency natural gas boiler or furnace with heat pumps, being able to have a control system that can allow a user to interact with both of those systems from the same thermostat or controller, as well as providing education to not only consumers, but also the contractors who are installing heat pumps about the pros and cons of various switchover points, and being able to let individuals who are involved with controlling those thermostats make their decision as to where they want to land, as to what heating system is providing their primary space heating based on outside air temperatures. A program that we've been piloting this performance period is the early retirement of inefficient heating systems. I shared a story of one of our energy auditors finding a 70% efficient heating system that was installed in 1971. That was still functional, that through aggressive incentives and combining that with low-cost financing, really being able to accelerate the decommissioning, the early replacement of those systems for high efficiency and frankly, more reliable upgrades. Clean and Tune is an initiative that we'll be piloting this year, and we're intending to have as part of our portfolio for the upcoming 3-year period, of being able to have a member of our service team and then expanding it to outside contractors, providing a free clean and tune service with low-income households and potentially expanding to moderate income to first and foremost ensure that systems are operating safely and reliably, but then also being able to squeeze out some efficiency gains by being able to do some level of tune-up with that equipment. And then within our new construction programs, code compliance support, we're working with Efficiency Vermont and the department to frame out some of the details as to what this will all mean, but really looking to not only advance the ball in terms of beyond code and net zero ready homes, but also helping customers, homeowners, and developers meet the prevailing energy codes to help improve some of that realization rate over time. For our commercial programs, some things that have changed is we're going to be expanding, adding a financing option for small and mid-sized businesses. Again, working with our partner, Green Mountain Credit Union, as well as exploring other partner relationships to be able to provide small, mid-sized businesses, historically underserved businesses, access to low-cost financing to make investments in high-efficiency equipment. And also being able to provide enhanced incentives for nonprofits and historically underserved organizations, largely through some of the partner networks we have now, as well as we'll continue to engage with and grow to understand who are these customers, what are the barriers that may stand in their way, and how much can we bring to the table in order to help make those strategic investments to reduce energy use and carbon emissions. Some small updates within our development and support services categories. We've opted to eliminate the general administration category, as well as have incorporated information technology into resource acquisition. For general administration, there was always a challenge for us to try to understand how much of that GA was applied to market transformation activities versus things that would inherently have some resource acquisition benefits. And as part of one of the recommendations that came out of our overall performance assessment, we've opted to just remove that category entirely and retain 5 categories within DSS that are specific towards some of the tasks and the outcomes that they're looking to support. And in terms of some of the training and education that will be increasing as part of the upcoming 3-year period, really being able to work to engage the marketplace, developers, homeowners around code compliance and the role that we and other EEUs will be able to play within this space. Zooming out for a comparison of how the 2022 versus 2025 market potential studies looked in modeling savings over the next 20-year period, as well as our commission approved plan from the last DRP and what we're proposing is included in the graphs on the left-hand panels of the slide. So you'll note that for the 2022 potential study and the commission approved budget, you can't see the blue line anymore because there's direct overlap. We opted to go in exactly where the potential study landed for our annual MCF savings and are intending to largely follow some of that same playbook for the upcoming 3-year period, with one exception. We're looking at the next 3 years with the governor's rollback of the 2024 residential and commercial building energy standards to the 2020 version. We do believe that there is an increase in savings potential associated with that rollback that, due to a timing issue, weren't fully incorporated into the market potential study. But then starting in 2030 and beyond, we've largely accepted the market potential study results and feel like there is a reduced potential in the near term due to some changes, reduced savings that we get on a per widget basis to updates to our technical reference manual, and some changes around going from a 30-year average weather data to a more recent 10-year rolling average. But over the long term, there is still plenty of program achievable, cost-effective potential for delivering natural gas savings to our customers. On the budgetary side, similarly, we followed a similar path in terms of having a little bit of a boost in what we're proposing for our budget in the next 3 years. That's above what the market potential study has indicated. And then starting to see an inflection point in 2031, 2032, where we're actually asking for less funding than what the program achievable potential indicates we'll need in order to deliver those savings. I see that there's a question. Deirdre Morris.
Yeah, thanks. Figured it was a good time to ask if, so we see that the main difference between the potential study and the projections are because of that executive order on the building standards. So we just wanted to ask if BGS was aware that the Attorney General issued an opinion that just said it kind of exceeded the governor's authority to have those changes go in effect immediately, and that it needed to go through a formal rulemaking process, which the department has started. It's well on its way. So just wanted to make sure VGS was aware of that, and that they would, submit adjustments if that does not go into effect before the performance period starts.
Absolutely. We have been closely tuned into some of what's transpiring as it relates to all of this, and we'll continue to monitor and make adjustments to our projections as needed. Thank you for calling that out. Any other questions at this point before I dive into some of the program level budgets? Okay. So a side by each comparison at the program level for our 6 programs, comparing what the commission approved savings are for each of the current 3 years, and then by comparison, what we're projecting and proposing as part of our current our DRP for the upcoming 3-year period. New construction, as we've talked about, still declining portion of our overall portfolio, but we still believe that there is something there in terms of supporting beyond code buildings and savings attributions for code support. Our equipment replacement programs have been impacted by the technical reference manual updates. This is some of the nature of the savings adjustment petition that we submitted back in October, November timeframe, really being able to align our current 3-year period with what the updated savings potential is associated with each of those programs. We've modeled that as part of our upcoming triennial plan, and you'll note that the savings potential for both residential and commercial equipment replacement is much less than what we had originally approved as part of our current performance period. There's also a sizable increase in our commercial retrofit potential. Some of this relates to the model calibration conducted by the outside consultants who performed the market potential study, where there's some recency bias. So since we have been able to overachieve within our commercial retrofit program in the last 5 years, the model is calibrated to take into consideration that maybe there is a whole lot more that exists out there, and it's something that we believe to be true as well. So that's why it's included as part of our proposal. On the budget side, our resource acquisition costs of $75 per MCF saved across the entire portfolio is only slightly more than what had been approved in the last DRP. I believe our number was somewhere in the $74 to $75 range, so just a slight increase. We are seeing a meaningful increase in our commercial retrofit budget to be able to acquire the savings, the 50% boost in savings that we believe we can get at in the next 3-year period. And as with all of our past triennial plans, program budgets, we move them between under and overperforming programs in order to respond to customer needs, new initiatives, things that may be changing outside of our control within the economic and financial landscape in order to effectively achieve savings across the entire portfolio. As part of this DRP, we are proposing some changes, updates. Oh, Chair McNamara, I see your question.
Yeah, thank you. Just on the last slide, I'm looking at the 2027 to 2029 residential equipment replacement budget. It looks roughly similar to 2024 to 2026. But if you look at the prior slide, annual savings goals, the potential savings from that category, residential equipment replacement, is actually declining significantly. Is that a increased focus on low income? Is it increased costs? I'm just kind of curious what's driving that dynamic.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you for your question. As part of our upcoming triennial plan, we opted to maintain the same rebate levels that we've offered for the last 3 years, and feel like we probably could use even a little bit more in order to move the market and overcome some of the incremental costs that exist between a standard efficiency boiler, furnace, and water heater and the corresponding high efficiency unit. So that's where the budgets have been largely remaining the same from our current tri-plan to what we're proposing in this DRP. The savings have reduced dramatically due to some of the technical reference manual updates that were introduced midway through 2025, which ended up increasing the baseline efficiency and reduced the measure life for some of the high volume equipment that we support through each of these programs. So we're looking to support the same number of boilers, furnaces, and water heaters in our next performance period, if not actually some additional ones. We're just able to claim less savings for each widget that we help support through our program. So we're looking to maintain those same rebate levels. We just are, the savings are effectively cut in half for them.
Great. Thank you.
Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Great. Some changes we're proposing as part of our QPIs as well as our MPRs, some of which are intended to better align with the other EEUs, Efficiency Vermont and Burlington Electric, and how they manage and measure some of their residential single family and weatherization programs. So we're proposing average air leakage reduction of 34%, which I believe is directly in line with what EVT and BED has in their TEPF proposals. We also have a new QPI, as I mentioned earlier, around the percentage of advanced thermostats that we're supporting that also qualify as integrated controls. So not just a thermostat that can control one combustion-based system, but a thermostat that can control a heat pump in concert with a combustion-based system. And 40% of those advanced thermostats, our goal is to achieve at least 40% of those being integrated controls. Also, we've tinkered a bit with our residential weatherization metrics to align better with the other EEUs, really focusing on the outcomes of number of units comprehensively weatherized, as opposed to our current QPI framework, which looks at energy assessments and then the number of those energy assessments that convert into completed work within a year. Really just simplifying things, trimming down some of the existing QPIs to actually allow for the integrated controls one by having a target that's set for our existing footprint within Franklin and Chittenden County, as well as a separate QPI that's for Addison County. For business comprehensiveness, the framework is largely the same. Our proposed change is, as opposed to having 20% heating systems like we do in our current set of metrics, reducing that to at least 10% of the measure mix that we have through our retrofit program as being for heating systems. And then administrative efficiency, this is a bit of an administrative change that, as opposed to having a set fixed monetary target based on the assumption that we'll spend to budget, having a 5% reduction as it relates in our administrative costs as it relates to what we actually spend during the performance period. Yes, Ms. Morris.
Sorry, just one more question on that administrative efficiency. I couldn't quite follow which category of spending, because there's not a bucket called, just straight administrative. So I just want to make sure I fully understand that QPI. And then if you could just restate what you said about how that changes things when you're doing the reduction based on actual versus budget. Is it based on the previous performance period? I don't think so, but just trying to better understand how that change works.
Sure thing. Yeah. If Karen Horn is available, I may lean on her a bit just to provide more context and detail as to exactly how we quantify or categorize the various expenses that count towards what comprises administration, and then what are we measuring against in terms of that 5% reduction? Karen, are you available? I know that she was experiencing some Teams issues earlier. But...
Can you hear me?
We can, yes.
Okay. All right. So the department and the EEUs came up with defined administrative efficiencies that is included in the back of each calendar year. And that is how the QPI is factored. It's consistent with the other EEUs, except the only difference is BGS is proposing to do it on actual spending versus to budget.
I guess I should have prefaced the question by saying a lot of this is my first DRP, so a lot of this is kind of trying to build the context around trying to understand. So say that again. So the category, I get that it's all EUs. I know this is the same QPI for all EUs, but could you say that again for which what is the defined admin efficiencies? Or you can follow up, separately if that's easier.
I can actually follow up and share the actual spreadsheet that helps to populate it. It might be more clear.
Okay, and so but the difference with the other EUs is that this proposed change from budgeted to actual would be unique to VGS.
Yes, I believe so. I believe historically it's been to budget versus actual spending.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
And moving on to our last slide, looking at our minimum performance requirements, we've opted to introduce an MPR that relates to serving a minimum of 450 low and moderate income households, customers annually for the upcoming performance period. This is a substitution for an MPR that we've had for the last 5 years around tracking non-gas total resource benefits, which we will continue to do since it is something that's required as part of our overall performance assessment and looking at societal cost effectiveness for all of the resources that our program saves. But thought that as opposed to just having a reporting requirement included as an MPR, really measuring our commitment towards equity and serving low and moderate income households by actually introducing this as a minimum performance requirement for us. Mr. Nauer.
Yeah, thank you. On this point, and you probably heard me have this discussion with Efficiency Vermont earlier this morning, but when Vermont Gas is using the term low and moderate, that is distinct from just low income. Is that correct?
That is correct. For this MPR, we're looking at low and moderate income households. So households that are below 120% of area median income measured at the county level, which is different than the MPR that we have related to minimum low income customer spending. So we've retained that MPR. It's one that we've had ever since I started with Vermont Gas 5 years ago. And we're going to continue making these investments for low income households measured at the spending level, as well as also tracking and exceeding our performance for low and moderate income households as part of our commitment to equity.
Thanks.
Of course.
All right. Any other questions for VGS at this point?
Plus, in a follow-up actually to that low-income spending question. So, and I could do the math, I just don't have the total budget. So the low-income customer spending, just looking at the past DRP cycle, I think VGS was currently dedicating 9% of residential spending to low-income customers and wanted to phase in transition to achieving 33% by this year, I think. So
Correct.
Just wanted to kind of ask how close VGS is there, or they, where that metric looks like, and we'll start there. I think that's fine.
Yeah. Yep, you are correct in pointing out that this current performance period is effectively a transition from 9% of residential spending up to 33% over the 24 to 26 period. We're actually proud to report that we've been able to exceed some of our low income spending requirement by the end of 2025. So with us, acknowledging that there was a transition period and a ramp up, but that we would need to achieve that steady state of 33% of our residential spending as we started the next performance period, really focused a lot of attention efforts in terms of what we could deliver to low income customers through our own in-house programs, as well as establishing relationships and partnerships with organizations like CVOEO to support the weatherization assistance program as well. So we're in a really good spot and have a solid foundation of programs to continue to build from for the next performance period.
Great, thank you.
All right, any other questions at this point? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Perrin. So absent any other questions, just a reminder, there was a couple follow-ups. Please file those in the docket through EPUC. Anything else that we should talk about here right now? Okay. Well, thank you all for the presentations. As always, very interesting, very informative, and looking forward to the rest of this process. We're adjourned. Thank you.
Everybody.
Mhm.